Hello everyone and welcome to Carol Nash Inside Bikes, and today we've been riding the new Honda CB750 Hornet. Now I'm sure everyone at home watching remembers the original Hornet launched back in 1998. That was an inline 4-cylinder 600cc bike that was really popular for all different types of riders, whether you were experienced, you were a novice. It went through a few different iterations up until it finished production in 2013. It even had its own single make race series. So it was a really popular bike, and then when it finished in 2013, we didn't really think we'd see it again. So 10 years later, this arrived, the CB750 Hornet. So it's got 2 less cylinders, it's a parallel twin, kicks out 90 horsepower, 55 foot-pounds of torque. It's got a 795mm seat height, so the essence of the bike being sort of a middleweight naked sports bike has remained, but as I mentioned, 2 less cylinders, but that engine still provides a really exciting ride. So the new Honda Hornet fits in the middleweight naked category, and it comes in at $6,999. So that's cheaper than the likes of the Suzuki GSX-8S, the likes of the KTM 790 Duke, the Triumph Trident 660. The list goes on in the category, and there's some great bikes in there. But what the Honda packs in for a pound under £7,000 is amazing. This bike actually that we've been riding today has got the sport pack on it, which is an extra £555. So comes in at about the £7,500 mark, which is the same as the MT-07, the really popular MT-07. But what this bike comes with for that money is fantastic. So the little TFT dash, really usable. There's quite a lot of information that's packed into that TFT dash, but actually when you get used to it after a couple of minutes riding, you can sort of understand where everything is and what you're looking at. Switch gear is really lovely to use, intuitive, and they haven't cut corners on it. You usually see on sort of bikes at the cheaper end of the market sort of cut corners on things like the finish of the bike and things like the switch gear and the buttons and the dash and that kind of stuff. But actually this feels really nice and tactile. It's really nice to use. You're not looking down to sort of figure out where you're pressing. And then getting back to the 75cc motor, even though it's got 2 cylinders less than the original Honda, it's still just as exciting. It's also worth mentioning that the SE Project exhaust that's on this bike is an aftermarket accessory. It comes in at about £900, and I think it adds about 1 to 1.4 horsepower over the standard model. We've been riding it on a mixture of sort of B road, twisty roads today, as well as a bit of motorway stuff, and actually in any sort of format that you're riding, it's been a joy to ride. We firstly started off onto motorway stuff and just sitting at 70 miles an hour. You've got this little fly screen here that comes in the sports pack that does a good job of deflecting the wind around you. You're not sort of battling against the wind, which is really nice. You could sort of commute on this no problem at all, whether you're in and around town or whether you've got a bit of a longer distance to go. This bike is absolutely fine. But then whereas I think at its happiest is on these sort of twisty B roads, and we've had so much fun on it today. It's really revvy, it's got good punch out of corners, the quick shifter as well, just allowing you to seamlessly shift through the gears. It's just been a real fun bike to ride. Moving on to suspension, as you'd expect for a bike that's a pound under £7,000, it hasn't got adjustable suspension, but what it has got is Showa upside down forks and a Showa rear shock, so really high quality stuff, and in the middle of corners, really planted. There was no sort of unexpected issues that we had when we were riding it a bit harder on some of the country roads today. The only time it did get a bit flighty and a little bit unstable were sort of quick changes of direction. Moving on to the brakes, you've got 4-piston Nissin radial calipers with ABS front and rear. I had no issues with ABS intrusion today. We have been riding it on a nice warm sunny day, so we had some grippy tarmac. It's also got traction control, 3 different rider modes, rain, standard and sport. We've been riding mostly in sport today just because the weather's so nice and the type of roads we've been riding on. But the standard mode and the rain modes, again, just sort of dulling down the power and increasing traction control as well. So as I mentioned, on the dash you've got some really nice information that's displayed on there, and when you're sifting through the modes, which you can also do on the fly, which is a really nice touch, when you're sifting through the modes, it tells you what level of power and what level of traction control and engine brake you've got in each different mode, so you can tell when you're sifting through if the conditions get a little bit worse, or it's wet, or you're riding in the cold conditions and you want a bit more traction control and not as much power. Sifting through, you can see exactly what mode you want to be in. And I thought having that little extra touch, rather than just the name of the mode, you've got that little bit of extra information. Thinking about sort of more novice riders, I think that's a nice little touch. The bike we've been riding today, as I mentioned, has got the sport pack on it, which is an extra £555, but that comes with a really nice to use quick shifter up and down. Even at slow speed, there was no issues with that at all. High speed, it just made it seamless to shift through the gears. Comes with a seat cowl as well, and then also sporty pegs. Now, with a 795mm seat height, the distance from the seat to the pegs isn't fantastic, so it's quite an aggressive riding position from the legs point of view, which was fine. I'm about 6 foot, so I think any taller than that, it could get a little bit cramped. And being critical, the issue I had with the gear shift lever and the rear brake, the angle that my foot was at from the peg, I found myself lifting my leg up to change up the gears and then sort of doing the same thing down because my angle of my foot couldn't quite reach. That might be an issue with me rather than the bike, but that was just one thing I found riding wise. The position of the pegs and the levers weren't quite right. The bike comes in various different colours. I think the look of the bike as standard is fantastic, but this colour scheme in particular, the white and the red, I think the white's lovely, but I'm not 100% keen on the anodised frame. I'm not sure that's to my taste, but it's hard to criticise a bike for its look. I know that style is subjective, but that's just a personal thing. But they do come in other colours as well. You've got that famous Honda reliability, you've got a 2-year warranty and a massive dealer network, so you can't go far wrong. It's really hard to criticise a bike that comes in at £1 under £7,000 and delivers so much to all different types of riders. It's really accessible, it's got a lovely engine, it handles beautifully, and the package that you get with it in terms of the rider modes, and especially with the sport pack and the quick shift and that kind of thing, it's a lot of bike for the money, and I think in that class it sits at the top of the tree. Even on paper, performance-wise, horsepower, torque, and it sits at the top of the tree, and I think at 6,999 Honda have done absolute wonders to deliver a bike as good as this for that price. We've absolutely loved riding it today. We'll have the full write-up on Karen Ash Insidebikes, but this is our first impressions, and yeah, first impressions are really good, so definitely go and test ride one, and thanks for Honda for lending us the bike today. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.